Welcome back to Captain Mormon. The following is an excerpt from Documentary History of the Church, Volume 2. The content is Joseph Smith talking about ancient prophets, scriptures missing from the Bible, and how the gospel has been taught from the very beginning of the world. If you like this, please subscribe and enjoy the video.
That man was not able himself to erect a system or plan with power sufficient to free him from a destruction which awaited him, is evident from the fact that God, as before remarked, prepared a sacrifice in the gift of his own Son, who should be sent in due time, to prepare a way, or open a door through which man might enter into the Lord's presence, whence he had been cast out for disobedience. From time to time these glad tidings were sounded in the ears of men in different ages of the world, down to the time of Messiah's coming. By faith in this atonement or plan of redemption, Abel offered to God a sacrifice that was accepted, which was the firstlings of the flock. Cain offered of the fruit of the ground, and was not accepted, because he could not do it in faith. He could have no faith, or could not exercise faith contrary to the plan of heaven. It must be shedding the blood of the only begotten to atone for man, for this was the plan of redemption. And without the shedding of blood was no remission. And as the sacrifice was instituted for a type, by which man was to discern the great sacrifice which God had prepared, to offer a sacrifice contrary to that, no faith could be exercised, because redemption was not purchased in that way, nor the power of atonement instituted after that order. Consequently Cain could have no faith, and whatsoever is not of faith is sin. But Abel offered an acceptable sacrifice, by which he obtained witness that he was righteous, God himself testifying of his gifts. Certainly, the shedding of the blood of a beast could be beneficial to no man, except it was done in imitation, or as a type, or explanation of what was to be offered through the gift of God himself. And this performance done with an eye looking forward in faith on the power of that great sacrifice for a remission of sins. But however various may have been, and may be at the present time, the opinions of men respecting the conduct of Abel, and the knowledge which he had on the subject of atonement, it is evident in our minds that he was instructed more fully in the plan than what the Bible speaks of, for how could he offer a sacrifice in faith, looking to God for a remission of his sins in the power of the great atonement, without having been previously instructed in that plan? And further, if he was accepted of God, what were the ordinances performed further than the offering of the firstlings of the flock? It is said by Paul in his letter to the Hebrew brethren, that Abel obtained witness that he was righteous, God testifying of his gifts. To whom did God testify of the gifts of Abel? Was it to Paul? We have very little on this important subject in the forepart of the Bible, but it is said that Abel himself obtained witness that he was righteous. Then, certainly God spoke to him. Indeed, it is said that God talked with him. And if he did, would he not, seeing that Abel was righteous, deliver to him the whole plan of the gospel? And is not the gospel the news of the redemption? How could Abel offer a sacrifice and look forward with faith on the Son of God for a remission of his sins, and not understand the gospel? The mere shedding of the blood of beasts or offering anything else in sacrifice could not procure a remission of sins, except it were performed in faith of something to come, if it could. Cain's offering must have been as good as Abel's, and if Abel was taught of the coming of the Son of God, was he not taught also of his ordinances? We all admit that the gospel has ordinances, and if so, had it not always ordinances, and were not its ordinances always the same? Perhaps our friends will say that the gospel and its ordinances were not known till the days of John, the son of Zacharias, in the days of Herod the king of Judea. But we will here look at this point. For our own part, we cannot believe that the ancients in all ages were so ignorant of the system of heaven as many suppose, since all that were ever saved were saved through the power of this great plan of redemption, as much before the coming of Christ as since. If not, God has had different plans in operation, if we may so express it, to bring men back to dwell with himself, and this we cannot believe. Since there has been no change in the constitution of man since he fell, and the ordinance or institution of offering blood in sacrifice was only designed to be performed till Christ was offered up and shed his blood, as said before, that man might look forward in faith to that time. It will be noticed that according to Paul, the gospel was preached to Abraham. We would like to be informed in what name the gospel was then preached, whether it was in the name of Christ or some other name. If in any other name, was it the gospel? And if it was the gospel and that preached in the name of Christ, had it any ordinances? If not, not, was it the gospel? And if it has ordinances, what were they? Our friends may say, perhaps, that there were never any ordinances except those of offering sacrifices before the coming of Christ, and that it could not be possible before the gospel to have been administered while the law of sacrifices of blood was in force. But we will recollect that Abraham offered sacrifice, and notwithstanding this, had the gospel preached to him. That the offering of sacrifice was only to point the mind forward to Christ, we infer from these remarkable words of Jesus to the Jews. Your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it and was glad. So, then because the ancients offered sacrifice, it did not hinder their hearing the gospel, but served, as we said before, to open their eyes and enable them to look forward to the time of the coming of the Savior and rejoice in his redemption. We find also that when the Israelites came out of Egypt, they had the gospel preached to them, according to Paul in his letter to the Hebrews, which says, "For unto us was the gospel preached, as well as unto them. But the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in them that heard it." It is said again that the law of Moses, or the Levitical law, was added because of transgression. What, we ask, was this law added to, if it was not added to the gospel?
It must be plain that it was added to the gospel, since we learn that they had the gospel preached to them. From these few facts, we conclude that whenever the Lord revealed himself to men in ancient days and commanded them to offer sacrifice to him, that it was done that they might look forward in faith to the time of his coming and rely upon the power of that atonement for a remission of their sins. And this they have done, thousands who have gone before us, whose garments are spotless, and who are like Job, waiting with an assurance like his, that they will see him in the latter day upon the earth, even in their flesh. We may conclude that though there were different dispensations, yet all things which God communicated to his people were calculated to draw their minds to the great object, and to teach them to rely upon God alone as the author of their salvation, as contained in his law. From what we can draw from the scriptures relative to the teaching of heaven, we are induced to think that much instruction has been given to man since the beginning, which we do not possess now. This may not agree with the opinions of some of our friends, who are bold to say that we have everything written in the Bible which God ever spoke to man since the world began, and that if he had ever said anything more, we should certainly have received it. But we ask, does it remain for a people who never had faith enough to call down one scrap of revelation from heaven, and for all they have now are indebted to the faith of another people who lived hundreds and thousands of years before them? Does it remain for them to say how much God has spoken and how much he has not spoken? We have what we have, and the Bible contains what it does contain. But to say that God never said anything more to man than is there recorded would be saying at once that we have at last received a revelation, for it must require one to advance thus far, because it is nowhere said in that volume by the mouth of God that he would not, after giving what is there contained, speak again. And if any man has found out for a fact that the Bible contains all that God ever revealed to man, he has ascertained it by an immediate revelation, other than has been previously written by the prophets and apostles. But through the kind providence of our Father, a portion of his word which he delivered to his ancient saints has fallen into our hands, is presented to us with a promise of a reward if obeyed, and with a penalty if disobeyed. That all are deeply interested in these laws or teachings must be admitted by all who acknowledge their divine authenticity.
That's pretty much all I have for you guys today. If you liked this, please subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video.